How's it going, everybody? So yesterday, I went to the county that I'm building the new cabin in, handed in my permit application, gave them my money. They told me it's gonna be 3 weeks for them to process that. I mean, it is construction season, they're probably busy. I get it, but I mean, any other county that I've built in, I mean, different states even, you get your permit the same day. When you give them your money, your application, it's boom, okay, there you go to work. But I get, it is construction season, is what it is. So the cabin build is gonna be delayed a little bit. But I wanna make this video because a lot of people ask me if I get blueprints or anything for any of the builds I do. And I do my own blueprints. I draw things to scale, without any computers, nothing, just with a piece of paper. And I'm gonna show you how I do that. It always comes out exactly how I lay it out on paper. So this will work for, your new cabin build, so you can start getting ideas and laying things out, your homemade camper, tiny house, van, whatever you got going. This works really well and it's very simple, so I'll show you. So I want to show you this notebook. This is my sketch notebook. I tore down that tiny house that we were living in while we were building this cabin. And as I was tearing it down, I came across this. So these are the sketches that I drew up while we were living in that tiny house, dreaming about this cabin build. But look at this cabin. This is to scale. I'm going to show you how I do it. And then look at the cabin. It's even got the snowshoes on it and everything, so it's exactly how I pictured it. So this is the floor layout inside. Again, this is to scale. So let's go in and look. So this is the living room. So let's have a look at the living room. It's exactly how I drew it up. Kitchen on the left, island. We did move the fridge over on this wall just to utilize that space. Other than that, everything's the same. We did have our couch and that table right there all winter, and then we decided to rearrange for a little change up in here. But other than that, wood stove is right there in that corner. So then these are the back rooms. Hallway, the 2 rooms, our room, bathroom, and then our mechanical room. So I'll show you how I do this. So all you need for this is some paper. You can use whatever kind of paper you want. Grid paper is nice though. And this is called an architectural ruler. You might be able to find this at Walmart, your Targets, whatever. Otherwise, like an office supply store will have one of these. Okay, and if you look at the ruler, you can see there's different scales, right? So you just want to use one that's going to fit on your paper. So as an example, I'm currently designing a new cabin build. I told you guys earlier this year that it's going to be a 12 by 16. I've changed it to a 10 foot by 12 foot. I have a really good design for it, and I think you guys will be pretty impressed with the amount of space that you can have in there. It's gonna have a full upstairs. So I just look at the scales, find one that's gonna fit nice on my paper. This one looks like it's gonna work great. So you look at this, each one of these is gonna indicate a foot. So I'll lay it out. There's my front wall. The side walls will be 12 feet. So here's my 10 foot by 12 foot floor plan. Now, if you own a copying machine and you are dead set on doing a 10 by 12 or a 12 by 16, whatever size you're going with, you could just make a bunch of copies of these. That way you don't have to draw them out every time, but I don't have one, so I just draw it out. It's not that big of a deal, but if you could make a copy of like 50 of these, that would be nice. So you don't have to do this every time. So this is how big, exactly how big I'm gonna build my deck, basically, right? My floor. So this is how much space I'm gonna have to work with. So once you have this done, it's fun. You can just lay things out how you want. I'm probably gonna do my door right in the middle, right in the center of the front wall. So I'm just gonna mark 5 feet there. I'm gonna custom build my door. I always do. And it'll probably be somewhere, it won't be a standard door, I think is 3 feet wide. Mine's not gonna quite be that big because it doesn't really need to be. So this is my door. So first things first, I always like to, when I'm laying out a cabin floor plan, if you live in a cold climate like me, your heater's pretty damn important. So I like to lay out where I'm gonna put my wood stove first. So since this is a small space, I'm gonna have a pretty small wood stove. So I'm just gonna reserve about a 2.5 foot spot in the corner. I mean, with the stove and the heat shield and everything, we're just gonna dedicate, you know, this to that. This is roughly how much space the wood stove situation is gonna take up. So what else do you need in a cabin? You need a kitchen. That's probably the next most important. You know, we eat 3 times a day, so you need to have a place to cook. Now that I know about how big my door is gonna be, probably will be about 2.5 feet, so that came out perfect, and it's in the center of this wall, I can now look and see, okay, I got less than 4 feet pretty much on either side of that door. If I do a kitchen here, I'm gonna want it to be bigger than that, which means I'm gonna have to wrap it around, which is okay. Well, what side do I want it on? I'll do most of my cooking in this cabin on the wood stove, so we'll just put it on this wall to keep it close. So there you go, right? I got 2 feet of counter space right here. You walk in the door, this counter will be right to your left-hand side. So I'll have 2 feet there. I made this 3 feet. That's 5 total feet of counter space. That's gonna be plenty for me, for my needs. And again, I don't have a dishwasher and a fridge and whatever else you're gonna have in a kitchen. I don't, this is just gonna be counter space. But this is where you can kind of start playing around now. I mean, do we like this? Maybe I want this exact, maybe I want to, flip this over and go this way. I don't know. If you walk into a door, you might want to have a little bench here, maybe a little bench area somewhere up in here to sit and take off your boots, store your shoes underneath it. And then above that, maybe a coat rack. You're probably wondering where the bed or all that's going to go. That's going to be up in the loft. So I'm not worried about a bed or any of that. I'm a big fan of doing a loft, especially in a small cabin. I think it's critical because if you have a bed in a cabin this size, that's going to take up a massive amount of room. But if you can get your bed off the ground, in a loft, that's going to save you so much more room. And then all this down here is just, living space basically. So when you're laying out a kitchen, if you're going to have a sink, it's always nice to have a window over your sink, right? And again, I don't know if this is where I'm going to put it. Just for an example, let's just say my sink is right here, okay? Well, then I know I'm going to want a window right here. Depending on what size window you're going to do, you can measure, off your wall and see, about where you want it, where it's going to lay, what size window is going to work for you, depending on what size sink you're putting in. This is why this is important, is because you can have this all done. Your layout, you have it built inside your head, and then when you go to build, you can just fly. It's like, yep, that's where I want that, instead of, otherwise if you don't do this, and you just start building a 10 by 12 cabin without any ideas in your head, then you don't really know what you're doing, and I promise you, your window layouts and all of that, you're gonna wish you did things differently. You're gonna need a dining room table, one thing that really helps with space, and it actually probably isn't going to work very well in this design, but that's why it helps to drop a bunch of these, is if you have like an island for food prep or something. I'm just going to draw one here just for fun. I know it doesn't really make sense how, but then this can double as your dining room table. Anything you can do to help out, give you as much space as you can and to, utilize areas the most that you can, that's going to be better. So one reason why it's really nice to have this and to be laying things out exactly to scale is, I put this island right here. Well, this is an example of things that you're going to run into. See, I only have 1 foot of space between the island and the counter. That's not really enough. That's, the length of this ruler. Like pretty much the length of a notebook. That's not going to be enough space. Let's go 2 feet. 2 feet's a good amount of room. So that's where that's going to have to go. It's about there. 2 feet by, roughly 3 feet. Well, that's kind of a dumb place for it. See, so this is why it's important to lay this stuff out so you have an idea, So I'm going to want to have a table. I'm going to have a window on this side. I can tell you that right now. What is that, a 2.5 foot window only? Probably be a 3 foot wide window, so we'll make it a little bit bigger. All right, well, if I have a window there, I like to look outside when I'm sitting and eating. So this is, this would be a good spot for a table. How big of a table do we want? Let's go 2 foot. That's good enough for me, It's only going to be just me there most of the time, maybe me and Sierra, right? 2 people, so you don't need much. So now we got a dining room table. This can also double as a desk, a place to, write, work, edit videos in my case, do whatever. And again, I'm just laying this out. This isn't how I'm going to lay out my cabin. I'm just showing you why it's important and how you kind of get the ball rolling in deciding what you're going to want and not want. I'm actually not even a fan of this layout at all now that I look at it. So, but I would hang on to it just to have and just to, refer to, just so I know what I don't like and, etc. I mean, a little bit of seating. I'm just going to draw this out. Obviously, if you have your furniture and you know how big your couch is going to be, or your tables, then that's how you would draw it, to scale. If you have a 6-foot couch that you're going to put in there, then you would draw, that's how big your couch is going to be, right? But this really helps when you're designing. You want to do this first, in my opinion, because based on where you're going to lay out your furniture and your kitchen and your, coat racks or whatever else you're going to have, your wood stove, that's going to be how you're going to decide where your windows are going to go, right? Because you don't want to put your windows in dumb spots. Maybe you're going to put your sink, maybe you want 2 windows on the front like this, and then, your sink can go here, right? Or if you reverse this, you get the picture, right? Or if this is going to be your kitchen and this is going to be your sink looking out your front window, now maybe this is where you want your dining room table to go. And then if you have a window there, maybe you want one here now too. So that's enough on that. You get the idea, but it really helps to do this. That way, when you go to build, you can just fly, you know exactly what you want. You got your drawing and you just go, where your windows are going to be, everything. So now I'll show you how you can see what the exact shape of your cabin is going to look like. I'm going to do the front view. I'm not going to do the side views or the back views. You can do those if you want, but if I do those, this video is going to be about 4 hours long. So there's my 10-foot wall. I'm using 7-foot studs. Of course, I'm going to have a bottom plate and a double top plate on that, so it's going to be like 88.5 inches, which is 4.5 inches taller than 7 feet. But I never factor that in when I'm just doing the shape. It's not going to make that big of a difference for this. So I'm just going to draw a 7-foot high wall. Okay, so there's my 7-foot high wall. So that's how my front wall will be framed. But now I'm going to draw my front gable. And the reason why this is important is to do this is this will help you decide what size lumber you're going to want. I want to be able to get away with using 8-foot rafters, and I should be able to. So using my scale, now each one of these equals a foot, like I said. So here's my 8-foot mark right here. So let's see. I want to have a foot overhang at least, even more if I can, but let's see. If I do 1.5 foot overhang, that's how tall my gable wall is going to be. So if this is my peak, so we'll go down to 8 feet. And then I'll just do the same thing, connect these. So there's the shape of my front gable. Okay, so let's find my front. Remember I said I'm gonna put my door in the middle like I drew out. That was a 2.5 foot wide door, I believe. So this is exactly how the shape of the cabin would look from the front if you were walking up to it. We can erase that. That was just to help us scale this. So that's basically what the front of the cabin will look like. Maybe we want snowshoes here to kind of tie that in. Maybe we'll have a window because like I said, this is going to be a loft. Whatever you want to do. But you can see why this is nice now is because it just gives you an idea like, okay, that's what the front of it will look like. Obviously on a larger scale, but this is pretty close. We're a little bit off because I didn't factor in the 4.5 inches I'm going to have for my bottom plate and double top plate, but I never factor that in. It always comes out looking exactly like it looked on paper. That little bit's not going to matter a whole lot. Same thing when I drew out this floor, the width of your wall is going to be 3.5 inches because a 2x4 is 3.5 inches wide. So you would have to, factor in that width if you wanted to get it to the nearest inch. I never do that because at the end of the day, that's not going to matter too much when you're laying out a cabin. But if you wanted to get, 100% precise to the nearest inch, then that's what you would have to do. But I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you were going to have 2 front windows, some people like to do that. You would draw these out nicer than that, but like 2 scale, so you could kind of see what the front will look like. Obviously, you do better, but... So now I'm going to show you something that's really important if you're going to have a loft. I'm going to draw this line for my top plate back in. Because this is going to help you see how much room you're going to have in the loft. Like from the floor, let's measure up to the peak. That's 4.5 feet only. So you're definitely not gonna be able to stand up in this loft, which I don't need to. I just want to be able to get up there and sleep, you know? And of course, you know, these will probably be 2x6s that I have for floor joists. So you would have to factor in, you know, 5.5 inches if you wanted to. Plus, you know, your plywood that you're gonna have on top of that. I never do that when I'm laying one out like this. Because like I said, it's not gonna make that big of a difference, but you know, you can see we're pretty much only gonna have 4 feet by the time that's all done. And what's nice is you can go this way, take your scale, here's my 4-foot mark right here, and start going this way, and you can see how much room you're gonna have, you know, as you get closer to your eaves. So right there is the 2-foot mark, so I always go like this for my 2-foot mark, because this is basically gonna be just dead space, you know, on these eave walls. And, you know, you can store things in here, but now that only leaves you with 6 foot wide or so for a bed. You know, you could wedge in there, but, you know, that's plenty of space for me. I'm happy with that. That's 6 foot wide, you know, of sleeping room. It's not going to be a king-size bed up here by any means. It'll probably just be a twin or a full at the biggest, but, you know, it just gives you a good idea to see how much headroom you're going to have. Maybe you know, you're not happy with that. Maybe you do want to stand up in here, and then you'll want to go with a steeper pitch like that, you know, and then of course you'll have to bump up to 10-foot rafters. But anyways, I wanted to make this video because I think this is critical to do if you're designing a cabin, even a small cabin. You might think, oh, we don't really need to, you know, lay anything out. We'll just figure it out as we go. Doing this helps you so much. You'll know exactly how much lumber you need to buy, what size, everything. And then with your floor plan, you know, laying this out, like I said, this is 10 foot by 12 foot. You might be looking at this going, ooh, gee, that, you know, that's not going to work, you know, for me and my wife. Or, you know, if you got kids, you can see, okay, we're definitely going to want to go maybe 12 by 16 or 16 by 24, because this is really small. And a 10 foot by 12 foot cabin is really small. I wouldn't go any more than 2 people on that. You could squeeze more in if you guys really like each other, but anyways, like I said, this front view is how my cabin is going to look, because I am going to use 8-foot rafters. I just need to get up here to have a bed to sleep, just so that's not taking up room downstairs. You know, maybe store a few things up top in the loft, but that's really all I need. I don't need to stand up in this one. I just want to get my bed off the ground. This floor plan I drew up is probably not what this is going to look like. Not really a big fan of this design. I have a much better one, but I just drew this really quick as an example. Anyways, I hope this video helps some people out that don't really know where to start on designing a cabin. I mean, it's a very critical part of the build. You know, you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna know how many windows you want, what size you want your windows, you know, what size lumber, everything. You can figure everything out. So it's a very important step. So since it's gonna be a couple weeks before I can start that new build, I'm just gonna keep plugging away around here. Lots to do. As always, thanks for watching. Happy 4th of July, and I will see you soon.